idea of lahu is distraction, something that gets my attention, and more important things that had a limited time schedule, they passed me by. The opportunity passed me by. Well, Allah is saying that life is full of this. In other words, in a 24-hour day between waking up and going to sleep, the conscious hours that I have and you have, there are priorities. There are things we have to get done. Every one of us has a to-do list that we need to get done. And what happens is we get distracted. And that to-do list barely gets touched. We get one or two things done, then the mind gets distracted, we do something else, and the things that you really had to do didn't get done. And the problem with that is our inability to balance, our inability to say, okay, this much time allotted for breathing room, but not enough, not so much that it takes away from important tasks. Some things need to get done. They cannot be compromised. They have to be addressed, right? So Allah says most people, for most of our lives, we look back and we say, I wasted a lot of years, or I wasted a lot of time, or I could have done so much more with my years. I could have done so much more with that time. And then life later on, you get, physically you're less capable. Financially, you're more strained, you're more responsible. There are people depending on you. You don't have the kind of free time you used to have. And now you look back and you're like, I wasted my college years. I wasted my early, pre-married life and all of that stuff. I wasted all that time. And now when you have your children and they're hanging out like you used to hang out, they're like, don't do what I did. Don't waste your time. Actually, you were a bigger waste of time in your years, but that guilt is piled up on you and you're slapping it onto your next generation, right? So this is what lahu does. But more interestingly, Allah didn't just compare this life to lahu. He also compared it to la'ib, to sport, to games, to a match. That's a really interesting comparison because a match is about competition. You're trying to defeat an opponent. You're literally inside of that, if it's a basketball court or it's a football field, right? Or it's a soccer field or something, you're at war with your opponent. For those 90 minutes or for those 4 quarters, or for that, in that time, the only focus you have is I have to defeat this enemy. That's all we have to do. We have to crush this enemy, right? So our life is actually filled with a number of matches. You have a challenge in front of you and you're going at it. You're focused on it. And while that match is happening, nothing else matters. This is all that matters. But the thing with that is, both teams, especially when things get very serious, both teams have athletes that have prepared their entire life to be able to play that match. To get to the professional level, to reach the finals or whatever, right? But only one team is going to win. They can't both win. So all of that work is going to look like it was completely gone to waste after all of that effort, because nobody's going to clap for you for great effort, thanks so much. They'll just put the camera on you because they want to see you cry. And then they'll turn the camera to the winner, right? And everybody's cheering the winner. And this is what this life is. It doesn't matter how hard you try to study for an exam. If you failed, nobody's going to say great effort, They're going to say you failed. All that matters is you failed. All those thousands of hours of study and preparation and all of that, none of that matters now. Because the only thing that matters now is that you didn't pass. That's all that matters. And this life is about a series of tests. We either pass or fail. Pass or fail, constantly, on and off the field. Whether it's at school, whether it's at work, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's literally on a playground, it's all of these events over and over again. And by comparison, what Allah has given us is something so beautiful. In the same vein, Allah says, وَأَلَّيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى in Surah An-Najm. He says human beings will have nothing except their efforts. He didn't say human beings will have nothing except their accomplishments. He said their efforts. So unlike this life, where the only thing that matters is winning the game, that's the only thing that matters, with Allah, the only thing that matters is the effort. That's what's celebrated, because what does the Quran teach us? Winning and losing actually comes not from people, it comes from Allah. And the only thing that actually comes from people is effort. So the only thing you get credit for is effort. You don't get credit for the victory. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ. It's attributed to Allah. when the victory from the aid from Allah, and the victory came. Right? So the same way, تِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. When Muslims suffered a defeat in Uhud, Allah said, these are days we flip between people. We flip between people. It's not Muslims lost and the kuffar won. Allah allowed them to have victory, just like Allah allowed the Muslims to have victory in Badr. It's the victory and loss is coming from Allah. The effort is the only thing that is going to be commented on. And 60 or so ayat are there in Surah Al-Imran commenting on the loss of Uhud. And all Allah is talking about is what effort could have been made better. Where were the gaps in the effort? And what do we learn from that? And how is it going to modify our efforts? Another important thing about sports, and this analogy of the game, is that games are just another kind of entertainment. But you get so serious inside of a game. You know, it's just... You just got a controller in your hand and you're smashing some buttons and there's a virtual thing that's responding to it. You're not dying. The boss is slicing away at you with his giant sword, but you're not the one who's dying. But you could see pain on your face, like, oh my God. And there's you're projecting yourself onto the character, and their loss becomes your loss. It was just a game, but it got taken way too seriously. You made it a matter of life and death. You took it too far. What do we do in this life? Sometimes things are just small. They're not that big of a deal. But we zoom in on them and we make them so important. We make them into life and death. And we do so much damage because we made something small into something big. We lose our sense of proportion. Allah says this life is just like sports. It's just like games. So there's a sense of proportion, and something remarkable that we learn from this analogy of Allah comparing life to sports is that in a match, like I said, one team can win, one team can lose, right? Or it's even a singles, like a tennis match or something. One athlete is going to win, one athlete is going to lose. Fine. This athlete has a championship cup in their hands. They get the applause. They won the match. They're the winner. But it could be true that in their personal life, they're losing in their marriage, they're losing with their kids, they're losing with their parents, they're losing to depression, they're losing all these other matches, but the only match they won is the one on the field. And it could be the guy that lost really badly is winning in every other match. One coach I was talking to, because I was trying to understand this ayah and contemplate it better, so I spoke to some coaches, some sports coaches. And one of them told me that in my career, coaching for 30, 40 years now, some of the biggest losers I ever met are winners. And some of the biggest winners I ever met are losers. It's remarkable. In other words, Allah is telling us something incredible about life. It looks like someone's winning. It looks like they have money, they got fame, they have looks, they have popularity, they have everything they have charm, they have everything you want. If I had that, life would be good. But actually, that's just one box. And outside of that box, they may be the biggest loser. Some of you might not know that Abu Lahab, for example, which everybody knows, Abu Lahab is like one of the ultimate villains in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, was a really good-looking, charming man. They were the celebrity couple. You know, he was actually, he was colored hair, tall, brilliant skin tone. People used to compare, to talk about his physical beauty and things like that. And Hind was considered a beautiful woman. These were the winners of that society by any standard. If you don't look at the Quran and you look at ancient Egypt, people still go there to take pictures at the marvel of what that civilization created. The pharaohs were winners in the world. They left their mark on the world. And we know from Quran's point of view, they're some of the biggest losers in history, if not the biggest losers in history, right?